Hello and welcome to tonight's Get in Tune. I'm Michael Gracia, and I have a very fun night planned. We got a really talented guy coming on. His name is Tim Jones. He is the creator of the comic strip Sour Grapes. Um, I've been reading Sour Grapes for a few years now, and I've been wanting to talk to him for a while. So let's bring him on. Hi, Tim.
Hi, how are you?
Doing good. How about you?
I'm good.
And for everyone out there to know, I just posted down there below. It'll be scrolling throughout the interview. Um, his Tim's social media here, so you can find him on Facebook. You can find him on his website. So Facebook is at Sour Grapes Comic. His website is sourgrapescomics.com, and his Instagram is Sour Grapes 2017. So after the show, feel free to go on and look. Hang around though to watch the show. And as usual, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments, and I'll be happy to ask him the questions. So, uh, Tim, let's get into your background before we even touch upon your comic strip that you're currently doing. Let's go into your cartooning background. When did you start getting into comics and drawing?
When I was really little, um, so 30 years old. No, uh, when I was in elementary school, I always liked to draw and um, arts and crafts and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was had a vivid imagination, I guess, and I always wanted to. Here's a little story. I always wanted to show my stuff to as many people as I could in school. We did a little project. I had to draw, you know, some scene or something like that on construction paper because that's what they made you draw on back then. And um, so I would show it around to some of the older kids and stuff, first, second, third grade, and that. And go to the next person, show it to them. Go to the next person, show it to them, and they all be like really nice and say, "Oh, that's nice, Timmy," but and it really wasn't. But so I just went from there. I always, going up through school. Fast forward to high school, I took art all 4 years, and went on to college, and I was an art major there. Got my um, associate's degree in art, visual art, and so I learned all the basics in that. But I always had cartooning in the background,
Mhm.
and um, so I just took it from there. Really, I always loved it. I always loved reading the comics and comic books and Mad Magazine and reading the Sunday comics in the paper and that.
Mhm.
So,
And what were some of your favorite strips? Since you do comic strips, what were some of your favorite?
oh, Peanuts, Garfield.
Mhm.
I liked Hagar the Horrible. This is back in the day.
Yeah.
Um, and um, what was some of the other ones? Dennis the Menace. All the classics really. But Peanuts, Peanuts and Garfield really stuck out to me. So
Interesting. No, that's good. I mean, two great strips. I mean, been around. I mean, God, what Peanuts came out in what 1950, I think it was.
yeah,
And I mean, and when Charles Schultz passed away, they kept it running.
yeah,
Just starting over basically, or and Garfield's still being produced. Great, fantastic stuff. I mean, I still read them to this day. I have
right,
can't really see, but behind me I got a bunch of my Peanuts, and I got my Hagar the Horrible collections, Wizard of Id, King of Roo. I got all these
yeah.
stuff. I love this. This is my those are my go to. I see in the background you got a lot of Iron Man. I take it you're a big Iron Man fan.
I'm a huge Iron Man fan. You can't see all of it, but
Mhm.
yeah, I kind of surrounded myself with that. I have other things too, but just kind of nerdified my place down here.
That's my studio too. um, so Was Sour Grapes your first strip, or did you do something before Sour Grapes?
Well, let's see. Um, I had in the late '90s. I started a strip called Every Blue Moon.
Every what?
Every Blue Moon,
Okay.
and that involved Aesop and the characters that you see today.
Mm-hmm.
It was just different, and Aesop didn't fly. Characters were looked a lot different back then, similar, but still a lot different. And it was in maybe half a dozen newspapers back then,
Mm-hmm.
and so I really didn't know where that was going. I just kind of drew um, obscure episodes and simple um, simple art for it and that, and it just kind of bounced all over the place as far as content goes. So I put that aside in the early 2000s. Went on with life a little bit, and then I came back with a comic strip called Job Shop,
Mm-hmm.
about manufacturing and that. And I got a writer to help me out with that when he was a professional comedian, who you could see on Conan O'Brien, Comedy Central. His name Paul Nardizzi, lives in Massachusetts,
Okay.
and because I used to do stand up
Oh,
back in
interesting.
the day, and um, so I met him through that, and I said, hey, you want to write a comic strip for me? And he's like, yeah. So we did that for about a year or so, about a year or two. That got into a few papers and that, and but he got busy and bigger in his career and stuff, so he had to pass on it, and so I put it away. I didn't know where I wanted to take that, so uh, so I put that to bed, and then life went on, and then I came back with Sour Grapes when I got laid off from um, one of my jobs that I'd been at for 7 or so years,
Mm-hmm.
and I used that time to bring all this back. I wanted to make a decision of whether or not I wanted to bring these characters back and really focus on a comic strip. So so I did, and I changed things up a little bit. I made Aesop fly,
Mm-hmm.
and retooled the characters, the way they looked and stuff, and just came up with Sour Grapes, and the rest is history.
Okay. For those who've, well, before I even go that, Joe Ryan, who's one of our regular watchers, he said nothing like classic comic strips. Just want to throw it out there. Joe, thanks for watching tonight. You're absolutely right. The classics are always the best.
Hi, Joe.
But so anyway, for anyone who's never read Sour Grapes, can you give us a little pitch about it? Get us, get us into it.
Sure. Well, it's about, like I said, it's about Aesop. He's a miserable flying dog, and it centers around him and his sour look on a problematic world that they all live in together.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's got a problem or a bad day or whatever, and it just sits in that world and how they deal with it, and just the daily foibles and that of everyday life. It's its own world,
Yeah.
and so it doesn't exist in a real world. Every now and then I'll bring in um, what's going on in the world. Like I did a few on COVID and
Mm-hmm.
that, but it was how they dealt with it, not how um, it would be dealt out in the real world. So,
Yeah.
um, but that's basically it. It's pretty simple. Um,
Well,
so,
it is a great strip. Like I
oh,
told you
thanks.
before we came on, I've been reading it. Like I said, I believe it was 2018. I connected with you on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I mentioned, and the people watching know, I did a strip called The Wiz, and I put it away because I got sick and love to bring it back, but I was looking at other comic strips that people were publishing, and I came across yours, and yours was something that I was really into. So I became a regular reader around I don't know 2018, probably November or
Oh
so,
wow!
October, November. I've been reading around, what you post on Instagram.
So that's one person that reads it. That's great.
It's a fun strip, and one of the things I love about your work, and we'll talk about the characters in a moment, is not just the simplicity in the design of the characters, but in your backgrounds. You choose not to use detailed backgrounds. Usually, it's sometimes just even a line and then two solid colors to separate the floor and the ground from the sky, or wall from the floor or something. Was that a decision that you made going into it, or just was something I'd rather have the characters pop and I don't want to go
Well,
into crazy detail?
two reasons why I didn't do backgrounds. On the technical side is I think they're distracting,
Mm-hmm.
and I really wanted to put the focus on the characters, because that's what's important. You start getting all this stuff in the background, and your house, your tables and chairs,
Yeah.
or outside stuff, trees and that. So I just kept it simple, and I didn't want to do colors top and bottom. I just wanted to keep it on the bottom because it kind of weighs it down anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other reason is I'm too lazy to draw
I
stuff in the background. I'm not very fast at what I do.
mm-hmm.
I'm actually not fast at anything I do. So I'm one of the slowest artists I know, and ask anybody, I'm a slow person. So
If you don't mind me asking, how long does it take you to complete like one strip? Not after you write the joke, but let's say you start drawing it, and then and it's from when you draw it to when it's finished, lettered and colored. How long does it take you? Would you say?
about a few hours. A
Okay.
few hours, only because I'll have a premise in my mind or
Mhm.
written down. I've got sticky notes and pieces of paper everywhere.
Yeah.
Keep them in my wallet and that as things come to mind. But
Mhm.
I I draw and write at the same time,
Okay.
so that may be why it takes me so long, because I'm editing as I draw, because it's important to me to match the expressions on the faces and gestures and that to what's going on of what they're saying.
Mhm.
So, but it just works for me to do it that way. I the episode builds that better that way for me for some reason.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, I about a few hours, because I, I draw on Bristol board, pencil and ink, and then that gets scanned into Photoshop, where I do fix all my mistakes and lettering and coloring and stuff like that. Um, and So that's it. Just takes time for all that stuff. So
No, I get it. It's a especially the coloring when you're talking about backgrounds too. If you drew backgrounds, how much longer that would take to color and ink.
yeah, I just don't.
No, I don't. Look, when it comes to backgrounds, I hate drawing them, but I use them when I need to. I try to
Yeah.
keep it as simple as possible, though. Um, if you don't mind me geeking out over supplies, what do you ink with? Are you traditional? I know you're traditional inker, but are you brush pen? Do you go for like microns? What's your
Oh, I just have your basic micron pens,
okay?
and I use a 08 for the characters and that, and then I use a number 1 micron for the word balloons. It's a
Mm-hmm.
different heavier thickness to it,
Yeah.
and I use 4H pencils
Okay.
To pencil with, and erasers.
Yeah.
And
No, I always love to hear what other artists work with. I had a friend passed away a while back, but when we get together, we just play with each other's drawing supplies. We'd be out to lunch, whatever, and we always had our pens in our pocket and trade off here, try this, whatever. And it's I just always find it interesting to see what people are working with, because there's so many tools out these days, from digital work, but traditional. I'm just next to me. I got a Flair Papermate. I got Sharpies. I got Microns. I got Faber-Castell. I just have
Yeah.
everything because you just want to play around with it. Everything gives you a different quality. I use a lot of brush pens myself.
Right.
Uh, so
But it's taken it. It took me, for the artists listening, um, it took me a long time to settle in. I mean, there was a point where I had to decide on what thickness of a line I wanted to be,
mhm.
wanted to draw in my, so I could stay consistent.
Yeah,
And I hate brush pens to use. Um, so I decided not to use those. I know a lot of people do that. I was encouraged to use one of those and that, but it just wasn't. I'm very influenced by Charles Schultz
mhm.
and the way he has uh, just a very thin line and
Mhm.
doesn't do the thick and thin kind of look to it and that.
Mhm.
So I was very influenced by that, and I was just like, hey, if he can do it, I can do it. So so that's where but it took me a long time just to figure out what I wanted to use
Yeah,
and then stick with it. It's important to, as I'm sure you know, to be consistent.
yeah,
So
exactly. I know when I was doing my Wiz comic, this strip looks different from the start to where and when I eventually ended it, because I tried it first on the iPad, and I'd use an app called Comic Draw, and the inking pen just wasn't something I liked. And then I moved over to Clip Studio Paint on my iPad, and I'm like, oh, this is nice. But I'm like, I prefer to draw in Photoshop, so I went over to my Cintiq, and so every pen line was completely different.
right,
And it just, until I got into Photoshop and I found the brushes that I liked. I'm like, I can't ink in Clip Studio anymore. I can't ink in this. I have to ink it in Photoshop for that brush. So
right.
I completely get it. Joe Ryan says I mainly ink with microns. They're fantastic. I did it for forever on some stuff. Although one of my teachers, I was taught by Tom Gill. I don't know if you know who he is, but
No,
back in the 50s, he used to draw a lot of Western comics like the Lone Ranger. I know he ghost drew a few of the Lone Ranger strips. He would draw a lot of stuff. He was one of my teachers, and if I inked in microns, he hated it. He was like, "You pencil very well, but your inks are terrible." But he was very old school. You need a paintbrush, you need the dip pens. You know what I mean? Like that was
yep.
his mentality. I love the microns. Joe also says one of my favorite thing, Michael Grassi, is to discover new inking tools, and it's just fun to play with. When we were allowed in stores, I would have so much fun at Michael's or at Dick Blick or something. Just go. I'd love to, test the tools out and see. So, and I think that's something a lot of artists just like to do, see what's out there. Um, but let's get back to Sour Grapes. Tell us about the main characters in the strip. So you were talking about Aesop, who is the flying dog, um, and he's kind of a negative character, if
Well,
you.
he's not so much negative as he is just he's just resigned himself to the fact that um, this is his life in this world,
Mhm.
and so he's his personality is he's just miserable. Um, he he not, doesn't necessarily look at things in a negative way. More
Mhm.
of he's more of a why 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 me kind of
Mhm.
guy.
Yeah.
And but he's always he's also always there for the other characters in their problems, and um, stuff like that. So he's a good listener in a way. But he's always, just his take on things and his snide remarks, and that is just the way he deals with this world and his life that he's in. Um, so the voice, not necessarily the voice of doom, but just uh, a snappy voice of reason sometimes, and just I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but you can see it in the strip, but it's in that area, um, and he's been around for a long time as far as the character goes. So,
Hmm.
um, but so the other characters, the next one is Maddie. He's the guy with the huge Einstein-like hair, and he's a not so bright astrophysicist, and I got that idea just because when the strip was just starting, and that and even before that, I was always uh, influenced by like Big Bang Theory and how they
Hmm.
were funny, and they were all scientists and that. So I just wanted um, to have a character like that. So, but yeah, he's just not so bright. He thinks that there's life on other planets and in the universe and that. So he's a little obsessed with that. Um, he's got trouble with girls,
Hmm.
um, and but just a lot of situations where he's just um, like I said, just not very bright.
Yeah.
So and so he's Aesop's like his best friend. So that's their relationship. And the next character after that is Constance, and she's little. She's Maddie's little sister, and she's about 15, 16 years old, and uh, she's just your basic bratty teenager, angry all the time, arms folded. Um, you know, everything bothers her. World revolves around her. Kind of situation. She doesn't get along with Aesop very well, and so that's Constance. And then the other guy is Slice, and he's the orange bear, and
Hmm.
he's just the opposite of everything um, uh, that's under the umbrella of sour grapes. He's annoyingly positive. Everything is just wonderful, and don't worry, um, things will be okay, and no matter how bad things are, and wants to give everybody a hug. But he's very annoying about it, so that drives Aesop up a wall. So when Aesop spends time with him, and the other characters spending time with him, it's just it can get a little out of hand, carried away with him.
Hmm.
But it always does turn out okay with him too. So um, and so I go into other things like I have Aesop has some friends that are snowmen, and during the winter I put him with them sometimes, and they he communicates with them, and it's they're short jokes,
Hmm.
um, one-liners kind of thing in that strip. So those are a lot of fun to do, and Aesop has a pet cloud named Ominous, and so I have some episodes with that too. That this um, adventure. I shouldn't say adventures, but just um, stories of Aesop with Ominous and that. So um, Aesop, when I can't talk tonight. When the strip started out, I used to have a cloud following Aesop around all the time, a dark cloud, which I was influenced by Eeyore and his dark cloud.
Hmm.
Um, and but as time went along, Sour Grapes started. I decided to get rid of that because backgrounds, I hate them, and it was distracting. And but I thought I wanted Aesop to have a pet for some reason. So I started thinking, I said, well, how about that cloud that was there? And all of a sudden I put a collar around the cloud and called him Ominous. And, voila, he's got a pet. And it's kind of ironic because Aesop's a dog.
Mhm.
I refer to him as an individual, but because he does nothing dog-like. But I just thought it would be kind of fun for a dog to have a pet could be a dog, So so that's that, and so that's just about everybody that's in the strip. So
I have to say, I mean, we do have a question coming up in a second, but I have to say, I reread a bunch of the strips today just to, familiarize myself with some of the material in case I forgot. I had questions I wanted to ask you. Just talking about Ominous, there's this one strip, and everybody go on Instagram. I'm sure it's on Facebook, but it's where Aesop is teaching him that he has to go to the bathroom,
yeah.
and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the character's name.
Oh,
The
Maddie.
the Einstein, Maddie.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't want to give away the joke, but something happens with Maddie. It's
I know which one you're talking
I had a really good chuckle today.
about. Well, good, good. I'm glad. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. I love doing the strips with Ominous.
Mhm.
Um, I I try to not do a lot of them because I have other characters and episodes
Yeah,
that I want to do. But he's a lot of fun. So I
yeah.
don't have to have him say anything.
No, and
So I
that's
don't have
great.
to write for him. He just says rumble, rumble, rumble.
Now, is just out of curiosity, is he the way you write him sometimes? Is he based off any pet that you've had, or you think of him, or do you didn't have a pet? I'm just curious. How do you?
Oh yeah, I've had a couple of dogs. I have a dog now,
Mhm.
very large dog, and so there might be some things that I experience with my dog
Mhm.
that might pop up in the episodes, but with Ominous. But you know, it's just the episodes and the ideas just kind of come to me.
Yeah.
Um, that kind of it's weird.
And with your just writing style, you were saying you write and draw at the same time, but do you come up with ideas first and just kind of take notes and say, okay, I'm going to draw this and I'll write the script as I draw, or are you just saying, okay, I'm going to sit at the board and I just want to start a story? How do you do
I
it?
I don't very very rarely will I sit down at the board with a blank slate
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of start cold turkey. I'll always have at least something. I'll have you know um, little notes, and I take. You can't see my drawing board; it's right here, but
Mm-hmm.
um, and I'll just leave things around, and a lot of times I'll have an idea, and the strip winds up not even being anything like that. End up going into something else that comes into mind. So um, if my computer ever cooperates, there'll be one going out tonight, but I don't know what I'm going to do. But because tonight's deadline, so that's great.
Oh wow,
Anyways,
I'm sorry to
welcome
hear
to my
about that.
world. And
And-
so, but most of the time I'll have just a premise, and
okay.
then I'll just take it from there and throw it to them and see. Sometimes the strip writes itself, sometimes it doesn't.
No,
So
I get it. I get it. I always tell people when I'm working it with a script and I'm writing constantly, like when I was doing the Wiz, I always say the Wiz talks to me. Like I have a conversation with him. It's not that I'm sitting down writing it. It's like, okay, the Wiz is going to a store today, and then he tells me what happened at the
yeah.
store. That's kind of how I feel it is when I'm writing. Is that how it is for you when you
Well,
write?
Aesop is always on my mind.
Yeah.
The comic strip is always on my mind. It's just become a um, part of me and what I think about. Um, all drives my wife crazy because it's all I talk about that in Comic Con. But and but yeah, he's just Aesop. I get a lot of people saying, "No, Aesop's you, yeah, big time." And I'd be like, "Well, yeah, because he's come out of me onto paper,
Yeah.
Um, and like I say, it's just a part of me. So
Yeah.
like anything, it's like, you play an instrument, that's your thing. That's
Mm.
what comes out of you, and your music is what's your emotions and your what you hear in your head, that kind of thing. So Aesop and the characters in the strip is my release, as it were. So, well,
All
that
right.
was deep. That was very deep. Wow.
Well, I'm glad I can ask those questions. You don't always get the deep questions here, but I try my best.
Okay.
Um, so let's go to Joe Ryan's question for you. He says, I do have a question for Tim for an upcoming creator who is working on his first creator owned graphic novel, My Life with an 80s Girl. What sites do you recommend for getting it out there? I'm torn between Indiegogo and Kickstarter. I just want to do things right, and any feedback would be most appreciated. Thanks.
Oh, well, I've never used either of those.
Mhm.
I do have a graphic novel that I'm just starting to kick around. Um, Writing with a friend of mine that's doing most of the writing, and involving Aesop. Taking him out of the strip a little bit. Same character though.
Mhm.
But I hear a lot about either one of those. I've got friends that have used both of those.
Mhm.
So it's just a matter of which one um, uh, is easier to use for you, and what uh, works best, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've never used either of those, but they're both very popular. More so Kickstarter. I hear more Kickstarters than I
Yeah.
do in Indiegogo, but they're both good.
Yeah. And just if I can throw my 2 cents in there, I will say this. I don't remember if it's Indiegogo or if it's GoFundMe, but with one of them, you get to keep the money, whatever is donated. So if you have a $5,000 thing and you make only 1,000, you still got that $1,000, but you still gotta give everything that you put in the rewards out. So
Yeah.
that's up to you. Kickstarter, if you don't make it, you the money, you don't get the money. It all goes back. So at least that's what I've heard. I've never used either myself. I just know this from talking to friends. Okay, so don't hold me to anything I just said. This is what my friends have told me. Um, okay, so let's get back to Sour Grapes. Now you're published right now with Sour Grapes in about 30 newspapers. You said your other strips were in a few newspapers here and there. You're a self-syndicated artist,
Yes.
okay? You don't hear about that often. That is a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
But the idea of being a syndicated artist for people in our age groups, I think we're close in age here, um, has always been a dream for a lot of us, who are cartoonists. And, whether we go into comic books, we make comic strips, whatever, that syndication route is it was always that goal, and it's so hard to get syndicated these days, but you're going out and doing it on your own. Talk to me about the process and the stuff that you went through to get your stuff out here, to get Sour Grapes out in the newspaper and get it out to the public.
Um. Well, I started um, right after it got. I think it was 2014, or late 2013, when the strip started out. I got into my local paper here where I live,
Mm-hmm.
and Smithfield, Rhode Island, and so and that had a sister paper. And so I started in there, and it worked out because I'm a local guy. It's a local paper.
Yeah.
Would you like to have a local artist in there with my strip and that? Um, so that worked out, and I used that as leverage for to get into some other newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
So I just started calling around, and um, before I knew it, once you get into you know a couple three newspapers, then other papers will think, well, he's legit, he's providing um, a product every week,
Mm-hmm.
consistent. And that's because that's what they look for. I think they get a little afraid to take someone on sometimes, especially on that level, because you know, uh, even though it might be good, they might miss a week, so they want to make sure that you're dedicated to it and that.
Mm-hmm.
So when the other papers started seeing that, it was easy for me to get into more papers because now you're in 10 papers, and I let them know that, and you're Rhode Island and that, and so that got me into more papers, and then I reached out to Massachusetts and got into some up there because I grew up in Massachusetts, so I use that as part of my sales pitch. Hey, I lived in Massachusetts for a while. It'd be great for me to get up there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I got into Texas, and I got into California. Um, and because of COVID, I really haven't tried um, too much to contact some other newspapers and that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so as far as that goes, I just make a phone call, and I find who the editor is, and I call and have a conversation with them. I don't like sending out emails
Yeah.
um, too much.
Mm-hmm.
Hardly ever do. Uh, I just think it's important to have a conversation with somebody. I think they appreciate that more
Yeah.
because editors get thousands of emails anyways, so they may not see it.
It's also easy just to hit the delete button.
Right, right.
You know,
Yeah, exactly. Story of my life. Yeah, one big delete button. And
definitely Aesop, right? You're
yeah,
definitely.
yeah. And so that's basically what I do, and it's give them a little bit of a sales pitch and um, ask me if they like to see some samples. They either say yeah or they don't, and I've been lucky,
Yeah.
and I've been really lucky being able to hang on to all those newspapers all these years, especially during COVID.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, but yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
And I was actually going to ask you, with COVID, that hasn't affected anything with the papers. People are, you know, still getting them,
Well, I
or
had a couple papers that went online, um,
yeah.
went out of print for a little bit, but kept
Mhm.
me on, and now they're back in print and just started me up again. So I didn't really lose any papers per se,
Yeah.
which was great, because they're starting to lose ads, advertisements, because some of these places were either going under or they closed for a while and
Yeah.
didn't want to spend money on advertisements. So that's, the newspapers, well, most of them, that's their bread and butter.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, getting back a little bit to what I was saying about sending the strip out
Mhm.
as samples in that, you got to have a product that people like.
Yeah.
Um, and the strip's got to stand on its own. I'm talking to the artists out here right now.
Yeah.
Um, the strip's got to stand on its own. And when I send it out, I don't really ever tell them the name of the strip. I don't
Mhm.
tell them what it's about. I just basically, you know, um, send them, ask them if they want to see samples, and if they do, I just send it out. Sometimes, well, lately I've been saying sour grapes in that, but um, and I just leave it at that. And it's really funny because they'll never ask me what it's about, which is really strange. What is your strip about? And I've I can't think if I've ever been asked that now that I'm thinking of it. But so then that's really when the strip's got to stand on its own. So that helps, you know, um, to have a good product.
Yeah. And you've turned your strips collection. You've collected your stuff into a couple of books now, right? How many books do you have?
I have 4 collections.
Mm-hmm.
and a couple of kids coloring books with Aesop and Ominous.
And do you go through like Amazon? How do you get them printed?
It's called I think it's called KDP now. It's Amazon. It used to be Create
Oh
Space.
yeah, it's the Kindle Direct Publishing or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
I know.
changed to that just to be a pain in the ass, really. And um, so I have a couple of great friends that graphic artists that help me out with putting it together because I don't do that.
Hmm.
Um, and so we go through them and kind of figured out. Had to figure out the formatting and all that. So, um, but but yeah, that's basically where I do it. You know,
And where and we can find these books on Amazon or anywhere else, or
they are on Amazon, but I don't really direct people there because I don't make any money. Amazon takes so much of it. You know,
yeah.
here's $1. But so you can go on my website
Hmm.
sourgrapescomic.com and I have an Etsy store
Okay.
and you can go on there and buy them there. Or you can email me. My email's on the website too, and I can do it that way too. Send you
Yeah.
one out, free shipping. Um, so unless you're in Africa or Australia, so then you're screwed. You got to pay for shipping. But
Well, I
um,
think I might have to add one of those books to my collection here of all these strips and stuff that I got around me here.
one
I
time I sent a book out to Australia, and they just sent it back. That's a boomerang joke, Joe. Michael. Why did I say Joe?
because Joe's our our main question asker here today.
Yes, Joe. See, you're sticking in my mind.
And he says, "Thank you for the useful advice, guys. You're very welcome as usual, Joe." Um, so I'm sorry.
It's all right.
No, no. So you have your books. I saw actually on one of your Instagram posts that you got it at a bookstore. Is that correct, or how'd that happen? Did I see it, or is it? Am I seeing? I thought it was like a. Thought I saw like a Hagar the Horrible or something above. It looked like a bookshelf for.
Oh yeah, I had to think for a minute. Yeah, you can get my books up at uh, the Laughing Shield Comic Shop. It's in North Attleboro, Mass, on Bank Street, and I did a signing up there uh, about a month ago, and they're very nice up there. They have some of my books there, and they're giving the proceeds to St. Jude's Hospital for Children,
That's awesome.
which is really nice. So go on up and buy one. It'd be great.
That's awesome. And when things are normal in the world, do you do a lot of conventions?
Yes.
Yeah. What cons do you do normally if people want
Um,
to find you?
last 2019 was the most cons I ever did too. I I did let's see, Rhode Island Comic Con, of course, Terrificon.
Hmm.
Uh, I did Plastic City. I
Hmm.
did let's see, Northeast Comic Con up in
Okay.
Boxborough, Mass. I did Kids Con, and geez, I did a bunch. Oh, I did Bing Con in Springfield.
Oh.
Uh, I almost did New York Comic Con, but I didn't. Maybe next year if they have it.
Hmm.
And so I did quite a bit. I did some other stuff, Free Comic Book Day, and some other
Hmm.
appearances, and some of those types of things.
Yeah.
And I even do farmers markets sometimes because they'll have like artists
Yeah.
um, art day within the farmers market. So I've done a couple of those. So I like to just be out and meet people
Yeah.
um, and that type of thing. And it's always great when someone comes by and says that they read it.
Hmm.
Read it every week or whatever. So
And your strip is a weekly. The newspapers that you syndicate in are
yeah,
weekly newspapers.
yeah, it's a weekly. I am in a few monthlies.
Hmm.
So but Mostly weekly. Yeah.
Um,
My computer doesn't fix. It's not going to be weekly this week. So
oh, I feel terrible. I really do. Because I've been in situations like you were telling me you were in before we came on.
this circle is still spinning.
And we started talking about 8:15, 8:20 just outside. So it's been almost an hour, or it's been an hour for you spinning, at least.
It's you know, I don't get it. That's all right. I should probably just stare at it and get into a trance. But that doesn't take much.
There was something you were telling me about backstage that I was interested in hearing about. You said last year you had a heart attack, and it led into a comic script or something. First of all, I'm glad to hear you're doing better
Oh,
from
thank
that.
you.
Secondly, could you share the story with us?
Yeah, I had a heart attack. That's it. That'll do it. No, I had the it just came out of nowhere, and the nickname for it is the Widowmaker, which they told me afterwards. Thank God. So can you imagine them telling you that in the ambulance? Are you having a Widowmaker, Mr. Jones? Great, thanks. How about some aspirin? So I just was sitting on the couch and started having some chest pain. Felt like an elephant sitting on my chest, and then some neck pain and sweating and that type of stuff, numbness in my arm. And when all that stuff started happening, my wife says I'm a hypochondriac, which I am.
Yes.
But that's another story. But this one was, do you want me to drive you to the hospital? That's what I got. No. Give me the phone. I called 911, and it's a good thing I did because it was just completely 100% blocked in one of my arteries. So it's just a matter of time. So then your heart starts to strive for and fight for oxygen. And so it's a good thing they came. It would have been a much different story if I didn't call 911. So I I got to the hospital and got right into the operating room and saved my life. So, but what it has to do with with my comic strip, hang on, cough into your sleeve now, everybody. In the time that I called 911 and the fire department was coming to my house, and thank God the fire department's not far from here; it's across the street.
That's great.
I grabbed my laptop when it was working, and I sent out my strips. I had a deadline that night.
Yeah.
So I got one hand here, and I'm typing on the web. I didn't care what it said as long as it's going to the right people, and that I had a few newspapers I had to get it out to. I was not going to go down without that, with that hanging over my head. So I got that done on and then the fire department came, but I'm dedicated to this, obviously.
I was going to say that's dedication. You're in a hospital, and don't forget my laptop.
Yeah. And then I get in the hospital, and it's like, thank God I have a backlog. But I was only in there for 48 hours. The technology is so advanced now. You get in and get out. 48 hours is up. Go home and recover. You're fine. Which you're not fine, but that's what they tell you. So.
Just quickly, because I know you have a lot going on with your computer right now, so I'm gonna wrap up.
It's just spinning. I wonder if I spin the computer, and that'll stop spinning. You think that?
I think that may stop your computer completely. But I know you're going to have some issues you're going to have to deal with. So usually I go for a few minutes longer, but I wanna wrap up in a minute.
I have more issues than Time Magazine, Michael.
I've I know the feeling. Believe me, I've said
Write
that.
that down, folks. You can use it.
What was I gonna? Oh, I want to ask because you say you have a deadline tonight. Do you usually work to your deadline, or do you usually get it done earlier? And today's just kind of like a fluke.
I work to deadline.
You work to deadline.
Yeah, because I want to stay in the mindset of having deadlines and making them.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to get to the point where I'm writing and drawing, 6 weeks ahead,
Mhm.
and that'll just confuse me anyways because I won't, realize that when you're syndicated with a major strip, with a major syndicate,
Mhm.
um, they do everything for you.
Yeah.
So you just send it to them, and then they handle whatever. So they'll tell you, you gotta get it to us at a certain time, and that. With me, I do everything from soup to nuts,
Mhm.
and I I got to send it out on time. I market it, I promote it, I do everything. I do the business end of it.
You're a one
So
man operation. I mean,
yeah, it's always something with this.
yeah.
Um, so thank God it's weekly right now.
Yeah.
Um, but
Okay.
so yeah,
I mean, congratulations. I mean, you even made it into the National Cartoon Society as a member, which is
yeah. Can I
fantastic.
tell a little story with that?
Go for it.
Because it's still spinning. I'm gonna keep saying that just because
Okay.
it's bothering me. It's good therapy. So when I was at Rhode Island Comic Con in 2017,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't a member, and but I belonged to the New England chapter,
Yeah.
and as an unofficial member because they encouraged artists to get together with the
Yeah.
pros and
I'm that
that.
way with the New York chapter here.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I've gone to some of the meetings and stuff, and
Oh
but
cool.
yeah,
Yeah, so that's what it was. You'd have like a meeting and dinner and that type
yeah.
of thing, and schmooze and mingle with some of the other people. So I knew someone, um, and they surprised me and came by my table,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, "Hey, how you doing? Thanks for coming by and that." And so that kind of went by. And the next day, um, he showed up again and asked me if I wanted to be on the National Cartoonist Society panel that they were having that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Whoa, that's incredible! I'm not a member, and they want to have me up there."
Yeah.
And so I went, and I met Joe Staten,
Okay. Yeah, I know
who
Joe.
at the time was drawing Dick Tracy, but he's been in the business, Marvel, DC, and other stuff
Oh.
for like 40 years. So it was awesome to meet him. What a
Mm-hmm.
legend! And Ed Steckley,
I know Ed. Good
who's
guy.
I think he's the chair of
Oh,
New
the New
York,
York.
isn't he?
Yeah. Of the New York chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I met him um, and uh, and another guy. So we went up to the panel room, and a lot of people in the audience and that, and I'm sitting next to Joe Staten, shaking, and because I can't believe, I'm just like, it was a big deal for me. I'm sure
Yeah.
they're like, was just another day, but for me, it was a big deal. And lo and behold, I'm taking questions from the audience, and one of the questions I got was, how do you handle rejection? And I said, well, I married her anyways. That got a laugh, and I don't know if I answered the question. So I think I did. But so after that, I went down and I talked to Ed, and he gave me some information and some advice and some encouragement to apply to get into the NCS, and I didn't think I would. I really didn't. I just didn't
Mhm.
think I was worthy, to be honest with you.
Really?
But he was saying to me that your determination and your own success, um, you know, will um, will be good for you. You know, they'll appreciate that, and I guess they did because I got the letter
Yeah.
and got in. So, and I'm so honored and happy to be part of that. You know, again with COVID, you know, they have the Reuben Awards every year, but didn't have it this year, obviously. So, and that's when you can go and meet all the big shots, and um, you know, I can be at conventions if they have an NCS booth,
Yeah.
which is what I was going to do at New York Comic Con if I went.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's just you know, it's just
Well,
great.
no, it's amazing. I mean, congratulations on that. I do have one question for you. Speaking of NCS, since they didn't have the Rubens this year, they did do their all-day live stream on YouTube. Did you watch any of that?
No, I didn't. I forget what I was doing, but I couldn't watch it.
Well, it's replayable on YouTube.
Oh, cool.
I
All
will say,
right.
I sat the whole day. I only missed, I think, two of the events. One because I had to do something, and two I just got busy. But I basically sat in my studio, worked all day, and just left YouTube on, and it was just fantastic to listen to
Oh, cool.
and hear some of the stories and you know all the stuff that they do.
It's great for networking too. You
Yeah.
know, I've met a lot of people, and I've been on quite a few podcasts too.
Mhm.
And I've just, you know, I've met so many people between that and Facebook and Instagram. You know, the networking is just great, and the NCS is just another way to meet people in the business. So
And they're all great people. I mean,
yeah,
I've
they are.
met so
Yeah.
many people, and I don't have anything negative to say about anyone I've ever met. You know, coming through the NCS, they're all really just nice people, very friendly. Share some great stories. The stories you hear are amazing. you know, so well, again, congratulations on being a member of that.
Oh, thanks.
I'm going to start. I'm going to wrap up now because we're hitting the hour mark, which is what I normally go for. And number two, I know you got your work to do, and I don't want to.
It's been an hour already.
I know it's been fun here, man. I could sit and talk to you for a lot longer too.
I could sit here and talk to me a lot longer too.
Well,
There's
you
been
may just have to
times.
do that.
Really? Stop it. Okay.
All right. Well, it was very nice chatting with you. I'm going to put you backstage for a few moments. All right.
All
And
right. Hey, thanks for having me on, Mike.
Oh, anytime. Anytime. Thanks. All right, guys. So thanks for tuning in. It was really a great night. I got to say, I always say it's inspiring to talk to other cartoonists, other artists. But let me tell you guys something. I've been reading his strip, like I said, since like 2018, since I discovered it on Instagram. But I've been reading his strip a lot today, just to kind of even though I've read it just to get ready for the interview. And I've been wanting to bring back the Wiz. And tonight I wrote 10 jokes, actually 11 jokes on these little pieces of paper here. And I want to say it's because I was reading and got so into his strip. So I got to thank him for that. But next week we got Dave Alvarez coming on, who is who's been on in the Incredicon stuff in the past. But he has a video game coming out, and we're going to talk about his video game. And if we can get them on, we might have some of the game, the team that made the game. If not, it's just going to be Dave, but we're going to talk about his game. Joe, thanks. Awesome show as always, you said. I appreciate that. And everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next week. Have a great week. Have a great weekend.